You've probably heard that a wing can be stalled at any airspeed and at any attitude. While that's absolutely true, it's not very intuitive. After all, how can you stall an airplane with the nose pointed down or with the airspeed in the yellow arc? It just doesn't make sense. The problem is that only one number determines whether an airplane stalls or not, and it's not a number you will find on most instrument panels. That number is the critical angle of attack. While airspeed, weight, pitch attitude, and bank angle all change, the critical angle of attack remains the same. Exceed this angle and the wing will stall, every time. But remember that angle of attack is not the same as pitch angle. To distinguish between these two, we need to consider a third angle, the flight path angle. This is the angle between the flight path vector, where the airplane is going, and the horizon. You can think of this as the climb-descent angle of the airplane. Subtract the flight path angle from the pitch angle and you have the angle of attack. That doesn't mean this is a mathematical formula you need to calculate in flight. Instead, use this basic concept to visualize what your rough angle of attack is at any point in time. For example, in a normal climb, the pitch angle might be 5 degrees, as viewed on the attitude indicator. But that does not mean your angle of attack is 5 degrees. That's because the airplane is climbing. The flight path angle is positive. Now imagine you're practicing slow flight with a pitch angle of 5 degrees, but the airplane is in level flight. The flight path angle is 0. Here, your angle of attack would be much higher, even though the pitch attitude is exactly the same. This sounds confusing in theory, but it's pretty simple in practice. The question to ask yourself is, where is the airplane pointed compared to where it's moving? If you can answer that question, you can visualize the relative wind and the angle of attack. The reason you have to visualize angle of attack like this is because most light airplanes do not have an angle of attack indicator in the panel. Instead, we use airspeed as a proxy for it. For example, the pilot's operating handbook for your airplane references stalls in relation to airspeed, not angle of attack. That may sound cavalier, but it's actually quite reliable. Just because an airplane can be stalled at any airspeed does not mean it's very likely. In most cases, airspeed is a very good substitute for angle of attack. Keep the airspeed in the green arc, and you won't stall. Put another way, if your airspeed is high, your angle of attack is probably low. This is why most stalls you practice will probably happen at a low airspeed and with the nose pointed up. This is simply the most likely scenario for a stall. There's one important caveat though. This applies to normal flight conditions, roughly defined as less than 10 degrees of pitch and 30 degrees of bank. In steeply banked turns or other unusual attitudes, airspeed is not nearly as accurate a substitute for angle of attack. For that reason, some light airplane manufacturers are beginning to include angle of attack indicators as standard equipment. They were once found only in jets, but are helpful for pilots of any airplane and any experience level. They offer a real-time look at your angle of attack, no matter what your weight or bank angle, making them a helpful tool for avoiding a stall or maximizing an engine-out glide. In fact, Navy pilots rely almost exclusively on angle of attack when landing on aircraft carriers. Analog angle of attack instruments usually include a single hand and a dial that ranges from green to yellow to red. Digital versions are very similar, but often present colored bars in the form of a tape instead of a dial. In normal cruise flight, the angle of attack will be very close to 0 and well within the green. During landing, the angle of attack will increase and perhaps even enter the yellow area, but never the red. Some angle of attack instruments also feature a circle or donut that indicates best glide speed. Unlike an airspeed indicator, where you will often try to fly a precise number, say 65 knots for VY, the angle of attack indicator is more of a quick glance instrument. If it's in the green, you're safely below the critical angle of attack. Don't worry about the exact angle. In fact, many angle of attack gauges don't even show numbers. But even if your airplane does not have an angle of attack indicator, it's fairly easy to avoid an inadvertent stall. The first step is to maintain an awareness of your angle of attack at all times. and ask yourself if the airplane's pitch attitude and flight path are significantly different. The second step is even simpler. Try to fly smoothly. If you avoid aggressive maneuvers and keep the airspeed comfortably above stall speed, you will most likely fly your entire career without ever getting close to a stall.